on blast.
We're going from one of the best episodes of the challenge, Spies, Lies, and Allies to, I didn't like this one, Sheldon.
I mean, luckily for the viewers, possibly, I'm fired up because of other things going on right now. So either way, I'm here to bring it where the challenge this week might not have.
I mean, I've got some hot takes, but I didn't like this episode. We'll get into why. I'm John Shidley Hill.
And I am Sheldon Alexander on a Thursday morning, just ready to go and ready for that edit button after we're done this podcast. Because, yeah.
And this is You Killed It, the podcast about the challenge. I gotta tell you, Sheldon, and I know you're gonna agree with me.
Hold on. Can I just say again, this is another one of those moments where I want to start a thread where people write in where they really want to start knowing what we talk about before the podcast airs. Do you know what I mean? Because when you really think about it, sometimes, like, once we start talking about the show, there's part of me all the time that starts like laughing about, like, man, like what the real pod could be.
Yeah,
would be a classic. When my other career fails at some point, right? Maybe then we'll get to that. But yes, sorry, the challenge.
I will say, Sheldon, just to tease it out for our listeners, I think that you and I both lead very interesting lives, both personally and professionally, and people would enjoy hearing all the tea that we spill before we actually start recording.
Yeah.
I was going to say, though, and I know you're going to agree with this, that somehow it feels like a lifetime since I last watched the challenge. And I know it's only been 7 days, but so much has happened. Like, I was watching the previously on, I needed the previously on to remind myself, because my brain had pushed out so much because so much has happened in the past week. I got to start with something, though. I don't like Emmanuel mocking Kyle for being a chicken, because I don't know if it's, first of all, I don't think Kyle was a chicken in this regard by calling down Josh. I think he was just smart. Like,
yeah, but that's Emmanuel not understanding the game.
Yeah, that's right? Emmanuel bringing his real life values to the challenge, where cowardice, or what's perceived as cowardice, is actually often advantageous.
Yeah.
Which will set us up for later conversations in this very podcast episode. But also, Devin is having a conversation with Kyle. He says he's disappointed that Josh is gone because he felt he was a straight shooter. He trusted him, but he's blaming it on Tori and Amanda. And Devin says that Emerald is still a strong sell, but I personally don't think so. I'm just going to say it straight off the hop, because I think it's important to set the tone for this episode of You Killed It. I did not like how Devin played the game this episode at all. I am not Team Devin for now.
Well, when we get there, right? Like, for me to say I was with Nelson, says a lot, right? It says a lot. And I wonder if, like, we're the only ones feeling that way. I'm interested to hear what other people thought watching the episode as well, because I agree with you. It was kind of like, is the game getting to him too much? Like, is he playing the game a little too much? Is he kind of nervous because he sees a pathway to potentially winning? Do you know what I mean? And, like, that to me, is that a thing? Yeah.
I'll also say the one thing I'll give credit Devin for is Sapphire is pretty funny.
Yes. Yeah.
Another important conversation that happens is CT and Emmy have a team meeting minus Kyle about Kyle joining their team. And CT does not like it. He thinks that Kyle's either coming on back to Sapphire, either to protect himself or to sabotage the team. Emmy says that they need to accept Kyle. And she says, like, this is just how he was created. Like, this is Kyle for who he is. He's on our team. We just have to, like, accept that, like, Kyle's going to behave in a certain way, and we just have to sort of, like, anticipate that if we can, accentuate the strengths, cover the weaknesses. I'm sort of putting words into Emmy's mouth here. But I agree with Emmy. Like, this is your team. You got to roll with it, especially when there's only 3 of you.
Yeah.
You just have to, like, I mean, for sure, keep an eye on him, but you just have to accept that Kyle's gonna make, like, blunders in the daily competitions. You can't count on him to, like, I don't think he's necessarily dishonest, but I don't think he's often truthful. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he's playing his own. He's playing his own games for sure, right? He's always making moves that aren't the straight line strategy. Let's say, you know what I mean? It's always kind of like, oh, okay, like I see what you're trying to do here, but why did you go about it like that?
Well, Emmy also brings it to Kyle and says, like, hey, you and Uncle CT are still not cool, and it needs to be addressed. And Kyle says he won't apologize. And Amanda agrees with Kyle that CT always lets Kyle down. And I have to say, it's an interesting situation because I agree with Kyle. Mm-hmm. I agree with Emmy. And I agree with CT to some degree. Like, we are at an interesting point in the game where there's very few people where I'm like, that person's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Where I'm like, yeah, no, they have a point. Like, I see where they're coming from, but it doesn't, it's like, this is real life, right? Like, there's objective truths and there's subjective truths. And right now everyone is subjectively correct. And it's such an interesting tension in the household.
No, I agree with you. And I think that, because it's so close to the final, that's what kind of has people feeling some type of way. And even CT, like, what is Kyle trying to do? The sabotage thing. And a lot of these conversations seemed really phony to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it seemed like there's bad acting going on, like, because we know, obviously, there's definitely times where they're like, hey, we need you to talk strategy with this person here. Mm-hmm. Cool, go. But at this point, things are pretty straightforward. Yeah. Right? Do you know what I mean? So, like, the strategy of it isn't really that much. So now you kind of got to, like, stir up and know that you need filler. And I felt like there was a lot of filler. And that was a lot of it. And even like something like the boat day, right? Yeah. Now, there's so much I want to say about this boat day. A few things. First off, music, right? I need people to tell us what the music was for a lot of different scenes in this. But like the boat day, you would think before, and I know there's not that many couples left or whatever, but like it seemed pretty tame, pretty chill. But that was clearly like, hey, we need filler. We need a scene here. So let's film them all going on a boat for a day. But literally nothing happened, right? Like, it was just like nothing really going on the boat at all.
Well, I thought it was interesting that they showed us there's still like, what, 12, 14 people left in the house? Mm-hmm. And they only showed us like 5 on the boat cruise. Oh. Like, we saw a lot of Devin. We saw Devin, Tori, Emmanuel, Nani, Casey, and a little bit of Emmy dancing. We didn't see Amanda. We didn't see CT. We saw Kyle for like a brief second. We didn't see Nelson. Yeah, but like we only saw Amanda coming off the boat. And you can't tell me that Amanda is getting on that boat and just like quietly sitting in the shade.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes back to what we've been talking about, right? Like, what's being taken out. And we don't even mean like hooking up. We just mean like the drinking, the drunkenness, the like partying, right? And like, yeah, that was a big part of this show. That was a part of like, watching the show and being like, this is amazing. Like, look at the exotic locations they're at, partying. And, when you remove a huge chunk of that to the show, again, this ends up being a scene that's just filler. And part of that is, I want to know what you think about this. The level of this, like, Tori and Devin squabble, right? Because it's not a fight. It's not a real argument. But, like, is this just some elaborate, like, fake scenes that they've been making up just to, like, fill things up in this episode? Because still to this point, I don't understand Devin's point. Do you know what I mean? Like Tori and Devin are still friends and they're talking about their newly budded relationship. And, you know, there's a couple. First off, I guess I'll ask you the first question. First question is, do you believe this whole thing that they're arguing, or is it just filler for this show?
I think it's real. I think
Okay.
it's, I mean, we're talking about how, you know, they're all sort of acting up because the end is in sight. But on top of that, I would add, at this point, they've also been away from home for like 4 weeks, like a month, maybe 6 weeks. Like they've been in Croatia for a long time, and like I know you've taken trips with friends. I've taken trips with friends. There's a point where you get sick of your friends when you take a vacation that's too long together. And this is to the nth degree, right? Like they're living in the same house. They're not allowed to go anywhere. They're not going to bars, right? Like this boat outing was so like I agree with you that Devin's beef with Tori doesn't really make sense. I think Tori's beef with Devin makes sense. Like I think she was legitimately hurt. But I think part of it is just that they're tired, they're homesick, they spend too much time together. And I think that would happen to anyone that has to travel together for a long time. I'll tell you, real life story, coming back from the Tokyo Olympics, when we were flying back to Toronto, and we were all at Narita Airport in Tokyo. Basically, my coworkers and I, none of us spoke to each other for the last none of us sat together. Like there was a point where it was all of us when we got there hours early because we were worried about clearing customs and everything.
Yeah.
And so we were at an empty gate, and there was 10 of us, and we were all basically sitting like 20 feet apart and not speaking to each other. And like the bus ride, it was a 2-hour bus ride from our hotel to the airport. We basically sat in silence.
Yeah.
And like, because we'd run out of things to say. And like, I like all those people. I'm not criticizing my coworkers. You just get to that point after a month together. And I think Devin and Tori are at that point.
Trust
on
me,
top
I
of
totally
all
get it.
on top of everything else.
I totally get it. Yeah. And I mean, more filler stuff, you know, Emmy's trying to play peacemaker. She wants Kyle to say sorry to CT. Oh no, sorry. There was another question I want to ask you about the whole Devin and Tori thing. And it's more strategy and it's more like bigger picture. So it's not directly about them, but being on this show with one of your friends, right? And I'm saying, you know, as these people like to say, hey, no, this person's my real friend outside the house, whatever that means to you. How much do you owe that person in the game? And that's a question for you and to the viewers as well. Because I wrote it down and I also wrote down my answer. So if you want me to give you some time to think about your answer, I can go. But like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I think it depends so much on the friendship.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. I mean, people say like, oh, so-and-so is my friend. That person's my friend. I'm friends with this person. But so much of friendship is circumstantial and contextual.
Yeah.
Right? Like when we graduated high school, I used to joke with some of my friends that there are some people that I knew I was never going to speak to again. And I called it the 3-week rule. And like after 3 weeks, like if we hadn't been in touch, like best of luck on your future endeavors. Like I'm out.
Yeah.
Just because like to use high school as an example, so much of a friendship can just be like, man, I hate our chemistry teacher. Or in this case, in the challenge context, so much can be like, yeah, we both eat the same kind of food, so we're always making our food together, and like that's what we're talking about. But that's like it's a contextual friendship. So I think like, you know, Devin's talking about how much he likes Josh now. Are they friends or are they challenge friends? Right? Like, are they friends because they like to go to bed at the same time, sort of thing? You know what I mean?
So let's say it's like someone who is like your real friend.
Mm-hmm.
However you deem that personally. Because to me, I was thinking about it in the sense of if this is someone who's my real friend and we're both on this show trying to win $1 million, to me, I'm going to try to help you. I'd expect you to help me, but I'm not going to compromise my own game for you. And I wouldn't expect you to compromise your own game for me. Do you know what I'm saying? So like we'll do things to help each other out when we can. But like this whole expectation, like that's why I don't understand Devin's point. Like you're expecting Tori to lose on purpose to help you. Why would anybody do that? Like I don't get it. It's
not just that. So this is where Devin is so off base. And longtime listeners know I love Devin. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Devin's expectation, and he did this previously too. Like this is like sort of his running expectation is that people are going to tailor their games to benefit him just because they're friends. But also he is getting mad, like he's micromanaging the game so hard that he's getting mad about the possibility of things not going his way. Like if we really talk about what he's mad about, he's mad. It's not Tori's fault that she's off at Emerald. Like that's not on her. And he's mad that if she continues to help her teammates, Nelson and Logan, that they might make Emerald weaker, assuming that Big T wins elimination and decides to infiltrate and doesn't pick Amanda. Like, I don't think Devin would be mad to see Amanda go. Like, there's so many ifs. Like, Devin's logic is so far down the line of possibility where he could just, like, see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
And it might not even be an issue at all. But like he's so wrapped up in what's going on that he's thinking like 12 moves down the line instead of just like seeing what's in front of him.
And also too, just a basic principle of your friend saying, I just want you to apologize.
Yeah.
And he just keeps repeatedly saying, for what? And he says like he wants her to not try. And then on top of that, he wants her to promise that she's not going to do it again. Like, is this a real conversation? Like I just couldn't get it. And like, this is my line of the episode actually, but not because it's an endorsement, but because I was just so dumbfounded by it. Devin says, I can't just walk around apologizing for random feelings that I hurt. And I'm thinking, wait, why not? Like, of course you can. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't want to hurt random people's feelings. And if I did hurt random people's feelings, I would apologize for that. Like, I don't understand why, like, I just didn't understand his mindset altogether.
I understand his mindset, but it's a toxic one. Like I
see what you did there.
Like I understand what he's thinking, but he's wrong. Like
sorry, as you just said that, here's another mini tangent because we're not going to go far off. Last night when I came home, and you're going to laugh at this because you know the context behind it. But I was flicking through, and as you just said, I understand that mindset, but it's a toxic one. I put on the first episode of what's that? It's an HBO show, like a mini series with Jessica Chastain. It's like Scenes from a Marriage. Is that what it's called? Yes. And when you just said that, I understand your mindset, but it's a toxic one. My mind instantly just went back to that because if you've seen it, you kind of know what. Yeah. And yeah. And that's all I'm going to say before. Yeah. So sorry.
So Tori is totally Tori is
Thank
totally
you for
right.
moving us on. I appreciate that. You got
no problem. I'm keeping you out of trouble, Sheldon. Tori is totally right though, and Devin's completely wrong. It costs nothing to apologize, and like that sounds like I'm cheapening the apology, but like the worst thing you can say is, in terms of apologies, just be like, "Hey, I'm sorry that you feel that way."
Exactly.
Which is like,
it's not that hard.
It's not a great apology, but at least it acknowledges Tori's feelings. Mm-hmm. And she really is like, I don't think Tori's playing. I think Tori's really hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that.
The daily challenge, the daily competition is the $1 million heist. So they have these vaults filled with allegedly $1 million.
Hold on. Are we going to skip over this like the intro to this? Because like obviously the vaults that they were dealing with wasn't $1 million, right? Like we know that obviously, but this whole like they were trying to set up, and TJ's like, this is for $1 million. But I want you to see what $1 million looks like. And then they even have Emmanuel be like, I didn't even know you could print that much money. And I'm like, come on, man. Like we don't need to play this charade here, do we? Like nobody
people
thinks
said some dumb shit on this show, on this episode. Like there was.
Right?
my line of the episode, we're not there yet, but like, it was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. But
Okay, well, we'll get there. But no, say it.
I was just gonna say, I thought it was funny. TJ says that $1 million weighs over 2,000 pounds, and I really hope he translated it to kilograms for Kyle, Emmy, and Emmanuel and Big T, because they're all European, and like, there's really only one country on Earth that uses pounds to denote weight. And also, there's no way that those are actual dollar bills. Like, they were just
obviously not,
because like they were flying all over the place. Like, they didn't get every single bill into the SUV. You get like, they're so as they're actually carrying it, they're so casual. Like, you would not be like letting a 20 fly away, right?
No, but also like, to get like, let's just say the one safe did have an actual 20, like actual $1 million in it. Like, to do that, you would. I don't even want to go down this conversation. I was just like so almost embarrassed that you were trying to pull it off.
I mean, think of the insurance alone for having $3 million just hanging out.
Like, no, how would you can't just print off $1 million and just have it on stash on like the countryside. Like, what? And
it's supposed to be American currency, right? So how are you getting $3 million into Croatia?
That's cash, some illegal type shit.
Bills.
Someone's on some money laundering shit for sure.
Yeah, it's a crossover with the Ozark. I also have to point something out. So TJ says, $1 million weighs over 2,000 pounds.
Okay.
Sure, whatever you say, Teach. But the other thing is, that's assuming that it's like $1 bills, right? Like $1 bills is obviously a million bills for but like, if it's $20 bills, which is more likely, that's 50,000 bills, and so on, right? Like, like they could have made this task a lot easier if it was just like $100 bills, right? And then it's lighter. So like, TJ's throwing around like the weight, sure, but it's like, it makes a difference what the denominations are.
But that's like on TV, right? When they do the whole huge drug bust, and we seize over, all these drugs at a street value of $20 million, right? And it's like, yeah, that's that much weed if you sold it all in dime bags, but like, that's not that much, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's not, you're going for the headline here. We get it, but whatever. The one thing I was going to say though, that was super important to me, the biggest thing that I've been waiting for to say, and I teased it and wanted to save it, the music. Right. I need to know what music was being played when this started, because when they explained it and it's like, hey, you got to transfer the money from in the duffel bag. I was like, if they don't play Duffel Bag Boy, that is a huge L by whoever's producing this show, whoever, because I know you could get the rights, MTV. You're MTV. So I was just hoping that in the States, they did play the song. I think it's by Player Circle is the official title of the group, but really it's Lil Wayne singing the hook, and it's a big song. I'm not going to try to sing it, but we all got Spotify or Apple or whatever, right? You can look it up, and that's just a banger. That's a bangers track that even if you don't know the track just by the name, when it kicked in and you heard the beat, you're on it. My point is, if they did not play that song, I'm going to be I'm going to think so much less of this episode than I already did, right? Because if they played the song, then hey, then this whole episode was worth it. That's all.
So I took
that ends my TED
Talk. I took umbrage. I took issue with how the teams were just shoving the money into the duffel bags. Because to me, what you want to do is you want to make sure that as much money fits into each duffel bag as possible. And to do that, you got to keep it stacked, right? But they were just like taking armloads.
There's no strategy at all.
Well, they played like their strategy. So Devin was saying that Emerald's strategy was to fill up each bag as heavy as possible to take as few trips as possible, which first of all, to me was dumb because Emerald has the most players. And so they actually would have the freshest legs, right? And if anything, Amanda, granted, is not the strongest person, but Amanda's really fast. And what I would have been saying to Amanda, like, listen, Amanda, like, Devin and Casey will, who's the other guy? And Emmanuel will carry the bags when they're full of money. Amanda, Nani, your jobs is you're going to carry the bags back when they're empty. Yeah, but you're going to sprint.
Yeah.
Right? Because like we're not going to be able to sprint with this weight, but you can sprint when it's empty and you just like book it as hard as you can. And then like as we're emptying it, you don't have to like haul ass quite as fast. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So like sort of resting.
But like I wonder if the rules were that you had to move in unison as a team. Like I have no idea.
Well, they did later on. I mean, we can get to this now. Big T's judgment is clearly getting fucked up because she's so tired. She's so fatigued. And Logan tells her to like run ahead to push the money down to make space in their SUV. Mm-hmm. And she gets into the wrong car. She's so tired.
Yeah.
So my point is that you can separate. Like they did have Big T way ahead. Yeah.
Good call. I just found this whole thing. I thought that in viewing this challenge, I didn't think that it would be that interesting, but I think they did a good job of making it more interesting than it actually was. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was pretty close ultimately between Ruby and Emerald. Sapphire was way out of it because like you only have 3 people. Yeah. And like early on, CT sort of pins that on Kyle, but like 3 people against 5 people when you're carrying stuff, it's going to add up. It's
going to be a lot. Yeah. I think though, this whole thing is Logan's fault that Ruby didn't win. You look so shocked by that. Like I don't think this is some like Stephen A hot take. Like,
I'm going to need you to expand on that.
Okay. Definitely. I'm ready. So there's a moment where they're looking and they're saying, okay, can we fit everything else in? And Tori and Nelson are like, let's try to get everything in now. One trip. And Logan's like, no, we can't. It'll be too heavy. Let's go and come back. At that point, right? And again, I'm emphasizing this, the way that it was relayed to us, meaning the way the show is put together. At that point, you have to look and see where the other team's at to know if you can afford to take 2 trips. If you're so confident that you shouldn't just fit everything in the bag. But if you think that you can fit everything in the bag, right, which Tori, for whatever reason, thought so, and when you looked at it, there was some left over, but it looked like you probably could have fit some of that in, you have to do it. And Logan was so adamant, and in fact, it looked like he just took off ahead of them, like, no, that's it, let's go. And he just took off and left. You lost it for your team, bro. Meanwhile, look at the flip side. Emerald team comes back. Amanda comes over. They're trying to have the exact same decision, right? They have the exact same decision in front of them. Amanda comes, looks over at their team and says, oh, they have some left, but they still have to make one more trip. If we take everything now, we win. That's the ball game. That's it right there. Logan lost it for his team. Amanda, on some level, won it for her team.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Those are just the facts, according to me.
You know what? No, you're making a very strong argument. And also, people noticed that Amanda really carried her weight. Like, Emmanuel was impressed. Devin was impressed. Like,
she didn't want to go in.
She did her bit, which is smart. Yeah. I also have a fun stat for you, which I know you're going to enjoy.
Can't wait.
Nelson, Whoa Nelly, Scuba Nelly has now lost 50 straight daily challenges. That's 5-0. That's between 49 and 51.
Wow.
50 straight daily challenges he has lost in a row consecutively.
How do you even know that? That's amazing.
Greg Holcomb, a listener of our podcast, told me that.
I want to know like who's second on that list, right? Because that's an amazing feat for Scuba Nelly. And especially because first off, that's really hard to do. But secondly, it was so close so many different times. Like so close. But
so close.
Yeah, and that's not good.
I mean, you and I kind of both roasted Nelson a few weeks ago when he said eliminations are his thing.
Mhm.
I mean, comparatively, yes, it seems as though they are his thing if you're comparing them to daily competitions.
Yes. So yeah, Emerald wins, and the whole deliberation thing was weird to me, right? Like, well, first off, do you want to talk about Kyle's party?
I
Because I
just
don't
want
know.
to say that as a person of Scottish descent, I wasn't
Okay.
sure if I should be into it or offended. Like, I enjoyed seeing people celebrate my culture,
Yeah,
but also I found some of it problematic
fair. That's
because
fair.
they were trying to wear kilts, they're wearing plaid. They took their plaid shirts and wrapped them around their waist, except for Amanda, who was actually wearing a kilt. But none of them were actually tartans. But I also applaud them for trying to make the best of the situation. I don't know. I'm torn up about it, Sheldon.
I think that at the end of the day, this is what you should really think about.
Okay.
Do you want Kyle to be the best representation of what your culture has to offer? That's the question you should be asking yourself. Do you know what I
I mean,
mean?
that's
And so it's like, on the one hand, even if they did have things maybe done a little bit better, it's still Kyle, man.
See, now I'm really torn.
Well, that's a question you got to ask yourself. I don't have the answers to that. I don't have the answers to that.
I will
That's
say
just
Big T tried to do a Scottish accent. She missed the mark a little bit, and that's okay.
she
But
tried.
she did ask, "Where's the haggis?" And I gotta tell you, I am like I haven't had haggis in a while. I'm dying for some, and like I'm for sure gonna have a Burns night party, and I'll invite you to it.
That's definitely a fed line to her, though, from a producer, right?
100%. That's a written rap
Yes. Well
if I
played.
ever heard
Well
one.
played. Well
But
played, John. Yes.
I'm just saying that Big T is making me crave some haggis.
Okay. Okay. So this whole back and forth about who should be going into the elimination, I thought it was all for naught, and just like
I did too.
it
They
was
went
just like,
through this like heated conversation, all just to vote Big T in.
yeah. And like really this whole Devin, I'm gonna throw Tori in, like, why would you do that? That makes absolutely no sense, because you would have confidence that Emmy could beat Big T. So why would you need to throw in Tori? Right? Like
Yeah.
none of it made sense, right? So just this big whole elaborate, waste of time, let's say. Right.
I want to say so. Listener Eric says, I don't understand Devin's logic at all. Emmy is the obvious vote. She's a rookie and she will absolutely go back to CT.
Exactly.
And I have to say, Eric's right.
That's
Like,
what I
I
wrote
don't
down too.
understand.
Yeah. It made no sense to me. I didn't understand it. It was the obvious choice because there's no need for you to throw in Tori. And even if you they threw in Big T, cool. Like, I don't know what sense that made. But like, I don't know. I guess at that point you put the pressure on Big T to pick Emmy instead of having Emmy being mad at you that you put her in, right? Like, I guess that's maybe it, but whatever. Let's get to the actual elimination.
Okay.
Right? Because like in that whole deliberation, the only thing that I found interesting was the Nelson and Devin little back and forth. I found that interesting because I like that someone finally called out. I guess we are going to talk about it. Sorry, but sorry, I'm all over the place here.
That's all right.
Whoever's watching this video is like, how many coffees are you drinking?
That we should say Sheldon I mean, it's a large Tim Hortons. Is it a double or
Well, I actually have two. So I'm on
oh, you have two. Are they double doubles though?
No.
Okay.
Just
For our American listeners, a double double is a Canadian term for a coffee that has 2 creams and 2 sugars.
Hold on, a double isn't a term in the States, no?
No.
Really? Oh, I didn't know
Canadian
that.
expression.
I did not know that. Do you know that I remember in my old neighborhood, there was a dude that used to order what he called 2x4s, meaning 4 creams and 4 sugars. I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah,
Jesus.
like, trust me, I would not have believed that either. And not in fairness, but like, it wasn't a medium. He'd get like the super size, like whatever the biggest size was, but still, like, that is absolutely ridiculous. I remember someone doing a coffee run and it'd be like, yeah, get me a 2x4. I'm like, what the hell's a 2x4? And he's like, oh, a 4 and 4. I'm like, of what? Like, what?
Well, first of all, why wouldn't he call it a 4x4, which is like an actual expression? And also, that's disgusting. Like, to judge your friend. Like, I can't even have a double-double. They make my head swim to have that much sugar and that much cream. Ugh, 4x4. Good Lord.
I don't know. I was just kind of like, but yeah, that always stuck with me. So I don't even know how we got there. How did we get to my Tim? Oh, because I'm going off topic. How did we get to me off topic? No, but the Devin and Nelson thing, right? Because Devin is just like, I'm glad that someone called him out, right? Because he's feeling himself a little too much. And Nelson was right. Like, this is the epitome of the kids' memes that they got going on where it's show me the lie, right? Like, Nelson is basically saying, Devin, everyone knows what your weaknesses are, and you're just trying to manipulate and use your words because that's your best weapon. There's no lie there. There's absolutely no lie.
The other thing I would add is that Devin is micromanaging the game so much on a women's elimination week. Like, I don't want to say it won't have zero impact on his game in the long run, but it's like what micromanaging? Like, it's so unnecessary. Anyway.
It's also why I think this whole thing was made up, because Amanda wouldn't really want to send Tori in, because why would Tori want to? I don't believe Tori, first off, when she says that if she went in that she wouldn't switch teams.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't believe that. But also, like, why would Amanda give Tori the opportunity to swap her out? That also didn't make sense to me. But anyways, the actual elimination. I want to know what you thought of it, because it was pretty cool. Pardon the pun. But you basically have to see what I did. No, nothing at all. Crickets. Okay, fair enough.
I smiled.
Not my best material of the pod. That's fair. So you had to jump in. Well, the name wait, what was this called?
License to Chill. I don't know what it says about me that it made me think of the Beastie Boys before it made me think of James Bond.
I was doing a slow clap because I appreciate a clever name, clever pun. I'm right there. So you had to jump in the cold tank, essentially, right? The ice water, and swim under, come up, hit a bell, swim back under, come out, put together this giant puzzle. That was this elimination. Big T picks Emmy, obviously, even though I think she might have been able to take Tori in this. Right?
Yeah.
And I also think there's part of me that thought, shouldn't the girls have wanted to throw Tori in? Right, to get her out of the way. But again, story for another day. Either way, Big T versus Emmy, right? What do you think about CT helping Emmy?
It makes sense, but I felt so bad for Big T, where no one was cheering for her. No one was supporting her as CT was supporting Emmy. And Big T makes the point, like, he took me under his wing last season, and now he's not even cheering for me. Like, not even, she's like, you can help Emmy all you want, but like, you can't even be like, give me a, like, you got this, Big T, or like, good luck, Big, like,
yeah.
She has a point, and like, I feel bad. This is one of the things about this show. Big T is a good person. Like, you and I always talk about like people we'd want to hang out with, people we want to get a drink with. I for sure hang out with Big T. Like, I would want Big T in my life. Like, she just seems like a great, nice, reasonable, like, thoughtful person. And like, it sucks to see that no one's cheering for her because she's not good at the competitions.
Yeah.
Because like, it goes to show how real life values don't translate into this show. So it just like, I understand why CT was doing what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I think it sucks for Big T.
And, you know, you mentioned it, right? Or you touched on it. There was someone, maybe it was Tori, that was at least throwing in a, come on, like, good job. Come on, Emmy, come on, Big T. Like, at least throwing in like the little, extra on the side. Like, come on, let's go, Big T, when really you're not rooting for Big T. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Big T messes up. She has to start all over. I wonder how much CT, like if CT helped Emmy a lot more than they showed, right? Because it seemed very, like you could tell that he was helping her, but the way that they cut it together is very much like Big T's just like, oh, I messed up, I got to start over. And then Emmy's putting in her last piece.
Yeah. I think CT made a big difference.
Yes, because Emmy doesn't strike me as the puzzle queen that everyone wants to claim to be all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Emmy wins. She says she's going back to Sapphire.
Yep.
CT says she's coming back to Sapphire because she's fixated on him like the werewolves from Twilight, which is not the reference I was expecting from CT. And sorry, we blew past, to me, the line of the episode.
Okay.
Because it was so incredibly dumb. Nelson says someone's catching hypothermia or someone's turning into a Nelsicle. There's at least two things wrong with that. First of all, he gave an either or situation.
Okay.
Both of which describe someone getting cold. So essentially he's saying someone's going to get cold or someone's going to get cold. Second of all, what's a Nelsicle and why is he part of this? Like, how does Emmy or Big T becoming cold turn them into a, what I can only imagine is a frozen version of Nelson?
Because I thought maybe he was referencing whatever season it was, but it was fairly recent, where Nelson had to be taken off in the ambulance because he froze.
Yeah.
Like, I assume that's what he was referencing. So he's now using himself as the gold standard of getting hyperthermia on the challenge. I don't know. That's how I read it. But I also then realized I'm not going to try to read too much into Nelson. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to deep dive that hard into anything Nelson says.
Nelson did say something intelligent, though.
Okay.
God help us. He points out that Emmy is now 4-0 in eliminations on this season, which, like, is a great record.
Yeah.
Just in general.
I don't even remember who her eliminations were against, but when you get to 4, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Do you know what? Like, you could beat Big T 4 times and still you had to go into the elimination 4 times and win in your rookie season.
And Nelson says Emmy must be Rookie of the Year. I think he has a point. What do you think? Who else would be the Rookie of the Year if not Emmy? Who I don't like, but
no, I think it has to be her, right? At this point, because it can only be Logan or Manuel, and in either scenario, you're giving them credit for not going into eliminations, whereas maybe the women just played this game better than the men in terms of the vets, right? In terms of sending in the rookies. So I feel like Emmanuel and Logan just did a better job of eliminating or avoiding the elimination, but the other people have an effect on that too. Right. Whereas,
I mean, Logan went in once, right? Like, he eliminated Corey, but still.
True. But I'm saying in comparison to 4 times, it's, again, I don't like Emmy. I'm going to be honest. I tune her out most often than not. Once she pops on the screen and starts talking, like, I don't even really listen. Like, I go to my phone or go to Twitter or something, right? Just like I see what she's talking about. It's like, okay, this doesn't matter. Cool. Let's move on. Right. But yeah, with that said,
I was going to say, who killed it for you this week?
Yeah. I was teeing up your question there. With that said, a 4-0 record in the elimination, in the wise words of Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are. And she's on the brink of the finals. And, I mean, she probably didn't want to go in. Well, she definitely didn't want to go in, but you got to give her credit for winning. And for that, in an episode where there wasn't really that much going on, Emmy killed it for me.
It's unanimous. Emmy killed it this week, but I'm going to add on something.
Okay.
Neither you nor I like Emmy.
Correct.
But she was speaking a lot of sense this episode. Right? Like,
I wasn't listening.
aside from her conversation with Emmanuel, where she took it really personally, she somehow made the deliberations about her. Aside from that, though, like what she was saying to Kyle and CT and trying to get their team on the same page, she was right. Like her understanding of things was spot on.
Yeah.
So yeah, Emmy, you killed it this week. Where can the good people find you on social media?
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander, and like subscribe to the YouTube page and wherever else you get this podcast. Also, too, I guess I never really say this on this pod, but football picks are on fire this season. We've been doing this pod for DRF Sports every week, and I'm handing out football picks, and I'm not gonna lie to you, the account is bubbling right now. Like, winners are just happening on a consistent basis. So hey, maybe you might not be into the football picks and all that, but maybe you might know someone who is. Hey, I like to spread the love, spread out the winners.
You know what, Sheldon? I'll set up an account and just go strictly off of your picks.
Hey, also, I guess we should say like Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
right?
Happy American Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Happy wrong Thanksgiving to all of our American listeners.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say this much. One, I always wonder too, like, do Americans know that our Thanksgiving is a month earlier?
I think
Probably
it's 50-50. Yeah.
They don't really care. But I will say, I'm not mad at American Thanksgiving because I celebrate American Thanksgiving by enjoying the day and watching football. So let's go. I'll never be mad at American Thanksgiving. And also for like, there's a big money survivor pool going on, and I need the Cowboys to win right now, today. So hey, either you're listening to this before the Cowboys game and you know that I'm hype and I just need the positive vibes and you guys will send the positive vibes as well, or you're listening to this after the Cowboys game and you know the result of said Cowboys game, and trust me, depending on that result, you can guess what my mood will be. Tune in next week.
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at jchidleyhill. And I do want to say happy birthday to longtime listener Carrie Guerra, who is her birthday is this Monday. So happy birthday from us, your Canadian friends. We hope it's a good one. And until next week, this was You Killed It.
Sorry for rambling so much on this episode, but you killed it.